Even the Japanese officers were also terrified by looking at his, that radiance, that what is this? Is he God or divinely figure? And, that is one thing. And another account that I've heard of, I am yet to get a documented this thing, but something somewhere I have read, I don't recall, that one of the Japanese officers, when he had by mistake, due to some urgency of information that needed to be passed on, had gone inside the, opened the doors of the sanctum sanctorium, and I think he saw there that Bose levitating, from, and he kind of fell unconscious immediately by looking at that site. But this is like not documented. I have read somewhere, but इसका पुष्टिकरण proper तरीके से हुआ नहीं है. I mean, a lot of things about Bose resides in the oral traditions also. So this is just one of them actually. He has written that in his memoirs at places that I do used to get directions. And obviously we know this is quite possible because Sri Aurobindo, Rishi Aurobindo had got visions of Swami Vivekananda and Sri Krishna in the Alipur jail. In a small bag, this small bag was a 2-inch by 2.5-inch Bhagavad Gita, his Tulsi Mala, and his reading glasses.
Namaste viewers, welcome to Sangam Talks. We are continuing our previous session with Mr. Suryasarathi Roy ji. Namaste sir. And we were talking about, discussing about the spiritual aspect of Indian freedom struggle and particularly the freedom fighters from Bengal. So without further ado, I will ask Mr. Roy to start the session.
So in this session, we will touch upon, since we were discussing in the earlier session of the episode primarily on Netaji Subhash Bose and the impact of Swami Vivekananda's teachings on Subhash Babu's activities in the Indian freedom struggle. So from India, we will now move on to Seonan or Singapore and to Rangoon. So he had arrived in, Seonan in 1943, and after settling down the first time, he meets the head of the Ramakrishna mission on the night of Vijayadashmi. He had called him, sent his car and called him, and that is the starting point of his engagement with Ramakrishna mission in Seonan or overseas. And at that point of time, Swami Bhaswarananda and was the head or the secretary, and Brahmachari Kailasam was the deputy or to Swami Bhaswarananda. Now, there are a few incidences that I will share, which is very important for the viewers to know. In Seonan, the Ramakrishna mission had a school of 350 boys and girls, orphan boys and girls, which was renamed as the Indian National School by the Azadian government. And Ramakrishna mission at that point of time, if I correctly remember, was already getting some bit of military training to the guys over there, I mean boys and girls over there. So Azadian Bahini took over and they run a full scale military training for the borders. And Subhash Babu at that point of time donated $100,000 to Ramakrishna mission for bringing up their new building for these 350 borders. $50,000 from the INA fund and $50,000 he collected himself. And you know how he collected? He used to sell those garlands, those huge 3.5 kg garlands that people used to give him. He used to sell those garlands to pick up money.
And he acquired a lot of, a treasure in gold, money in gold.
That is another separate historical discussion. I know my friend Anuj is doing a lot of things to bring out that fact, what happened to the treasures of INA. That's a different story altogether. And I don't want to get into it. I know he's working on it.
Before Anuj sir, I first started to learn about it from Narayan Chandal's
Yes, that it was always there. It was always there, documented. Even killing of POWs, the INA POWs in Nil, this place very near to Barakpur. It starts Nil. Uh, I don't remember the name exactly. They were machine gunned completely. 2,000 to 3,000 POWs of INA were machine gunned by the British over there. The place is very close to, I think, Barakpur today. And this is one reported incident, but there were multiple such incidents in Burma also. In Burma also. And that is why Subhash Babu ensured that every Rani is transported back safely to their parents or to their origins, be it in Singapore or in the any other islands in Malay Peninsula or even to Rangoon from where they came. And and before departing, he gave a sari to each one of them with his own hands.
His sense of chivalry, bound him
Sari,
to.
some of them, I have gone through some of those accounts, so touching. For each and every member, surviving member. Today, what people do not know, that the first martyr of INA force, when the battle commenced, when they started marching into the British territory through the Arakan Valley, the first martyr was a woman.
So as the narrative goes, I mean, he's not try to, being the
Whatever we are doing about, I'm seriously now thinking of bringing out a book dedicated to the spiritual side of Netaji, because there's so much that we must look at that in a greater details. Time has come that we must look at that a man of his stature, how spirituality influenced of, it completely influenced of what Bose was, the supreme commander of the INA, Azad Hind Bahini.
Sir, I am very, it will be very interesting to know if some information you can give. When he first visited Europe, and he, started, making friends there for the.
That is more of a political stuff. That is more of a political stuff. But what since we are dwelling
The
on,
sense of spirituality is always
that is always there. That is always there. The smallest of his possession was in a small bag. This small bag was a 2 inch by 2.5 inch Bhagavad Gita, his Tulsi Mala, and his reading glasses. So that was his smallest bag. It was there when he was coming through submarine. It was there when he was in the battlefield in Rangoon, from Rangoon. It was always there with him in Seonan. Now, apart from their first visit, when he starts off his engagement and they discuss on that night of Vijayadashmi on what are the things happening, what they want to do, and what is Netaji's vision, all that stuff they discuss. One thing very clearly comes out that both their ideas were matching. So Swami Bhaswaranand was in complete sync with Subhash Babu, and he completely gave his consent and support to Subhash Babu in whatever he wants to do over there, and they will facilitate from their side. To this extent, one of the very important events that comes to my mind is once that was in 1944, when Subhash Babu had set up his base in Rangoon, he gets an update that in the islands of Malay Peninsula, the Indian laborers were treated very shabbily by the Japanese soldiers. They were very brutal to them. And this news, when had reached Subhash Babu, he was petrified actually. And so much so that he lodged a formal protest with the Japanese High Command in Rangoon and in Seonan. And I think he had also spoken to Tojo, Premier Tojo. And Japanese assured him all support. But after 3 months, he sends a mission to all these places led by Brahmachari Kailasam. It's like a committee that he forms and sends to look into the condition after post talks with the Japanese and to see how they are being treated now. And Brahmachari Kailasam, goes around and speaks to the laborers and finds out how things are, what are the amenities now provided to them, etc. And they come back and give a satisfactory report to Subhash Babu, and that is when things calm down. But he was, what I'm trying to say is that Ramakrishna Varshan was very much in sync, very much a party or a partner to the efforts mostly on the humanitarian sides to some extent and also to his spiritual side with Subhash Babu in Sionan and the Malay Peninsula endeavors. The other two incidents that come out that I distinctly remember is one I discussed about how he gathered funds and for the boat 350 odd children from Ramakrishna Mission for the new building. But at the same time, he quite often used to go to Ramakrishna Mission, particularly in the night, change himself into complete white silk clothes, as is worn by the brahmacharis, and get inside the sanctorium for his meditations. And these sessions or meditative sessions were no less than 2 to 3 hours, and he used to come out late in the night and then go back to his quarters. But at that point of time, doors would be closed. He would be meditating inside the temple, and the descriptions that are given that when he comes out of the temple, he would be emanating a different ray from his face, light from his face. This I have heard from many other memoirs also, that there was a different glow in his body, a different radiance from his face, a दिव्य aura जिसको बोलते हैं, दिव्यता का आभास होना. Secondly, one of the memorable events that or incidences that I remember is, as a part of my research, that in 1945, when the Japanese had surrendered, he was in Rangoon, and the INA Azad Hind Fauj was retreating from to escape arrest by the British forces, and his officers and the Japanese officers, they were insisting that both should leave Rangoon, and he was not like, no, I don't want to leave my men and leave like this. But anyways, after a lot of discussion and brainstorming, it was decided that he will leave. And before leaving, that day, he goes into the Rangoon Ramakrishna Mission and says that he changes into the white wardrobe with dhoti and thing and pure silk, finest quality silk, white silk, and gets into the temple. And when he comes out, there is again, he's a different man altogether. The Maharaj himself is saying, and even the Japanese officers were also terrified by looking at his, that radiance, that what is this? Is he God or divinely figure? And that is one thing. And another account that I've heard of, I am yet to get a documented this thing, but somewhere I have read, I don't recall, that one of the Japanese officers, when he had by mistake, due to some urgency of information that needed to be passed on, had gone inside the, opened the doors of the sanctorium, and I think he saw there that was levitating, from, and he kind of fell unconscious immediately by looking at that sight. But this is not documented. I have read somewhere, but इसका पुष्टिकरण proper तरीके से हुआ नहीं है. I mean, a lot of things about Bose resides in the oral traditions also. So this is just one of them actually. A lot such stories.
What people don't understand, that Japanese are very stoic and disciplined race.
Right.
And
and they are equally spiritual as well.
Yes, that's the thing. That's how Netaji, project that aura and make them believe that
Right.
he is that person.
In fact, interestingly, in the jungles of Burma, there were multiple incidences where when he was traveling in the convoy, he used to say that either you stop here, he used to hold back the entire convoy, or he will divert the convoy, and a British bomber will come and bomb that site. So many times, I mean, there have been accounts how this man used to understand that bombers are coming. I mean, bombing, the fighters are coming, and he will, divert. There's been so many incidences, and primarily it is because what I personally think is because of his spiritual power. He could understand many things, foresee many things. That is, in fact, one of the interesting stories that I've heard, again, not validated, that during the Vietnam War, when the Thai forces, the Vietnamese forces were not able to make breakthrough through the American defenses and lines. One of the tactics that was used by them was to drop a lot of drugs into the backyard of the American forces. And these American soldiers became drug addicts, I mean, drugs. And that's how they, slowly started losing the war. So this, I have heard, I don't know, again, कोई पुष्टिकरण हुआ नहीं है. I have heard that Bose, who is presumed to be alive at that point of time, had advised Ho Chi Minh on this. But again, इसका कोई पुष्टिकरण नहीं है. This is kind of grapevine, kind of legend, kind of folklore or ballad, you can say, whatever you want to term. But this happened. But it is beyond, it is beyond our imagination to even understand what kind of spiritual power this man had. He definitely had. Otherwise, somebody with a tiger skin is something not an easy job. It's not an easy job. It's not a normal thing that we are talking of. And secondly, if somebody is getting in a dress of a brahmachari, in the garb of a brahmachari, wearing those wardrobe, you're getting into the sanctum sanctorium and meditating 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours is not, and coming back with a divine aura, and he has written that in his memoirs at places that I do used to get directions. And obviously we know this is quite possible because Sri Aurobindo, Rishi Aurobindo had got visions of Swami Vivekananda and Sri Krishna in the Alipur jail.
Oh,
Yeah.
it?
Sri Aurobindo became Rishi Aurobindo to these divine interventions. He got a vision of Sri Krishna where Sri Krishna told him that this is not your path, that is your path. And then came Swami Vivekananda, and day after day, Swami Vivekananda trained Rishi Aurobindo. And I am also not saying this, you see Rajiv Malhotra also speaking on those lines. He also has validated these discussions and these points, and these are captured in, in Auroville. If you go to Auroville, you will read about these events in much more detail.
But maybe we are not ready for that, right?
Exactly. We are not ready. And going back to his early days of Subhash Bose, he also, which people do not know, he had in-depth study made into the doctrine of Maya by Sankara. He had a very detailed understanding of Adi Shankara's teaching, and he had dug deep, deep dive करके गए थे वो, to understand the doctrine of Maya. Mayabad जिसको बोलते हैं. So he understood that, and he then decided that no, this doctrine of Maya does not fit into my scheme of things, does not fit into what India needs at that points of time to liberate. And that is when he came back to the theology of Vivekananda of Shaktibad and started propagating Shakti. And that is where the conflict with Gandhiji happened. Because of this Shaktibad, only the conflict with Gandhi happened. They fell out. So it was throughout Swami Vivekananda getting into the garb of Netaji Subhash Bose and other revolutionists and pushing things for the liberation of the country. And in each of their words, in each of their activities, you see Swamiji's statements: arise, awake, and do not stop till you achieve the target. What is it? It is freedom. There is no religion apart from freedom.
Maybe he realized that the future leadership, they are almost like the collaborators.
Exactly. That he not only realized, he understood it. He was pained at the Swami Vivekananda was pained the way Bengali women were tortured by the British at that point of time. When we discuss the other aspects or other episodes of the Bengal history, particularly the Indigo Rebellion, when we discuss, I will tell you how the women were oppressed by the European planters. That is, and that issue of women oppression of women by the European planters came up for discussion in the House of Commons. So that means you can imagine the kind of mayhem these European planters had created, not just politically, not just economically, not just financially, or from an agro-economic perspective, but also on women's safety. And many of the British or European scholars that time, or the king came forward and clearly said that if India has to be ruled by the British, this has to stop. This has to stop. So somewhere he saw how the women are oppressed, not only underprivileged, and that is why again and again I am stressing on this point that if we have to truly understand what these two people Mahavatars have done, you will have to understand the condition of Indian women, condition of Indian people, the poverty of India at that point of time, how the famines not only broke the health, famines broke the backbone of the Indian people at that point of time. Poor health, economically poor. I mean, when we discuss the Indigo Rebellion, we'll get into all those details, but that is how it is. 1757, the Battle of Plassey happens. 1770, Bengal is hit by the biggest famine ever in the history of India. 30 million people lose their lives. 1/3 of the population is wiped out of Bengal. 30 million. 43 figures are nothing compared to 71. I mean, during my research on Vraj Mandal, I see that a similar story is repeated in the Vraj sector as well. Vraj passes on the Mathura, you mean the Mathura district, it passes on to the British from the Jat and Marathas in 1803, same time when Orissa had passed on. And both these provinces suffer famine after famine. In fact, Vraj starts suffering from famine right from 1813, within a decade. Famine after famine in Vraj. And we are not even discussing it today. From 1813 till 1879, this 65-66 years of stretch, Braj was tormented by as many as 5 to 6 famines.
From Swamiji to Netaji, they recognize that broken nation, and they try to way of the Shakti to improvise their.
Otherwise, there was no way out.
Yes.
The introduction of the Rajogun, was imminent. Otherwise, you cannot recover. Otherwise, you cannot make a turnaround. And that is why in a spiritual parlance, it is said that in order to do a sansara, you need sattva, rajo, tama. तीनों का गुणों का चाहिए होता है. सिर्फ एक से नहीं होगा काम. So there are aspects which we need to relook at, and why it should be relooked, I explained. And what is another aspect which also comes to my mind is the way Subhash Babu had organized the spiritual upliftment of the INA forces. It was just not military training or physical endurance training to both the Ranis and the men fighting squad, but also raising their spiritual consciousness. Imbibe the teachings of Gita into them, Bhagavad Gita into them. And that is how, they were able to, exercise so much of power even in front of the worst condition, worst situations in the jungles of Burma. They did not have food, they were under short supplied on arms, and they kept fighting and inflicting damages to the British forces.
And keeping in mind that there is a lot of non-Hindu, mainly Muslim
Yes.
soldiers in that
Yes.
army,
Yes.
and but they are all spiritually maybe inclined.
Because he told them that it is not a religious text. And mind you, it even holds true today. And that is why we see IIMs propagating and teaching lessons of Bhagavad Gita. The concept of selfless karma resides in every theology today, every theology, and that is what Bhagavad Gita spoke of thousands and thousands of years back. I spoke in the first in this previous episode. I spoke about his seva, Daridra Narayan seva. How do we see it culminating into his later years when he's the supreme commander of forces? Every time at certain periodic intervals, Subhash Babu used to organize feasts for the soldiers. Okay, believe me, there are accounts after accounts where it is being shown that Subhash Babu is not only inspecting the quality of the vegetables and other masalas and grains, everything coming, but he's also inspecting the cooking standards. He used to audit, he used to do certain visits. And then when the soldiers used to have food, many a times he used to sit down to have food with them, or he used to serve food to them. परोसना अपने हाथों से, किचन में जाके उठा के टेस्ट करना. He is the supreme commander, but he is coming down and doing all that for each and every soldier, and then check on them if they have taken their food. He used to sit with besides the bed of each and every soldier who used to get injured. And that is why I said that he was more of a father to each one of them. Probably more than a father, I would say.
Or the spiritual thought process you are talking about.
This is also again another incident which is coming to my mind is the Rani Jhansi regiment. Women from all age groups came forward. Women who were 50, 55, 60 also came forward. Now these mothers, obviously what kind of service they will do? They told Subhash Babu that let us cook the meals. You will need cooks to feed these soldiers, right? Allow us to cook them. And many of them had gone to the camps in the jungles to cook. This is not known. Many of them, there was a Thinjan camp in Burma, where they used to be trained, and they were there, and there was a funny incident. One fine day, Adjutant Pratima Sen writes, we suddenly saw a few tailors coming in. We were surprised that all of us have uniforms, and why are these tailors coming in now? So then these are for the mothers. The portability of the mothers have reduced by the hardships of the camp, and they were very happy. They were not complaining. They were very happy. And the pot bellies have reduced, so the trousers have gone loose. So the mothers needed new set of trousers, or the waists had to be shrunk. These kind of events, I mean, people do not know. And that's why I made it a point to share it with over here. How it happens? I mean, there was an incident where one of the, I don't remember the name of the Rani. She was on duty at the barracks, the same Thinjan camp, and with a bayonet, because they were taught how to bayonet people, enemy soldiers. So आपने जो लक्ष्य सिनेमा में देखा होगा फिल्म में कि bayonet कैसे कर रहा है, तो वो सब उनको सिखाया गया था. खैर, so Subhash Babu comes in and she is unable to see his face, and the car was blinking, and she stopped it. She fought with the driver, and then when the senior officers came in, they pacified her, and then they, the car could get in. And Subhash Babu was very happy with that Rani, that she has done her job, and this shows how good the training has been. So, in overall, that I'm trying to, share both from Rangoon and from, Seonan is each and every Vani of Swami Vivekananda, Vani of Paramahansa, was lived and practiced by Netaji. Starting from celibacy, starting from how to treat a woman, how to, inculcate education, the importance of physical training, endurance, everything, overall shaping of your personality. And live it by practice, lead it by example. I mean, one of the stories that comes from my family archives is when he was in Rangoon. That was the same time when the Great Bengal famine was ravaging entire Bengal. Okay, 43, 44, 44. And the Bengali Association there had invited Subhash Babu for a lunch, and obviously when he sat for lunch, a whole platter was given out to him, all delicacies, Bengali delicacies, and he was crying looking at it. He said that when my countrymen cannot have food for one time, एक टाइम का पूरा खाना नहीं मिल रहा है, वहाँ पे मैं इतना सारा चीज़ें कैसे खा लूँ? And my great grandfather and other people who were there, they pursued him, and then he took little bit of dal chawal, this much, that's it. So, I mean, overall, and there were many incidences that he writes that, when he had gone for his pilgrimage, or as a paribrajak, as he says, that I am an Indian pilgrim, that he says, they were shooed away from many mutts and this thing, because the mutts were also terrified of the British police, because these two guys, ये दोनों छोकरे घूम रहे ऐसे, ना कोई आता पता है, क्या पता इनका पीछे क्या है. Many places they were shooed away. Then what they did while coming back, Rakhal Maharaj had given them a letter of introduction, and that they showed everywhere, and they were allowed to stay and got some support. But there were places there where they did not have food for many days. Couple of days they did not have food. And the objective was Himalayas. The objective was Himalayas to become a sadhu, and that's how they came till Rishikesh. But from Rishikesh they went back.
So the superhuman interventions you are talking about, just one thought come into mind, that eventually we didn't get the Akhand Bharat. It break up. So it's like when it break up, Netaji was not in the picture. So it's like divine destiny. Can you give some thoughts on it?
See, I think this is such a topic, or this is such a area where people have different or varied opinions. Someone may put it in a spiritual realm of things, somebody may put it on a historical front, somebody will say it is a political happening. So to comment on a superhuman type and spiritual aspect is something, I think it would be unfair on my part. So I would rather detest not to comment on that, because that was an era where many of our fellow Indians, I mean our forefathers, had lost their lives. In fact, for that matter, one of my granduncle was beheaded at the Dhaka airport. I am a second generation survivor, third generation survivor. I mean, he was beheaded at the Dhaka airport in front of his family. So the first sword blow when it came, his wife took the burnt of it on the hand, and then she fell down unconscious. And the second blow, the kids saw their father getting beheaded in front of their eyes.
Very sorry to know that, sir, but that's, people need to know that's what atrocities happened.
So, and it is not so different from what we see, what Hamas has done today. It is the same modus operandi. I remember the account of the police commissioner of Calcutta on the direct action day. He writes that when he had gone to the Rajabaja Science College, four girls or women students who couldn't escape were caught by the mob. They were violated massively, and then both their legs were cut, hands were cut, and then they were tied by their hairs. The corpse, the body was hung by the hair with this, this क्या बोलते हैं, I'm forgetting the term, जो मटन या उसको हुक, दैट यू शेप्ड हुक, उसमें टांग के उसको रखा है बालों से. 4 bodies. Imagine a body hung in front of you like that. What would be your reaction? You'll vomit. A terrible sight, actually. The police commissioner himself is terrified that he is noting it down.
Such incidents are hard to imagine even.
So, anyways, coming back to our main topic, so there are thousands and thousands of incidences like that. I mean, we can go on the planning commission, the financial aspect. In fact, Netaji's foreign policy was also to a great extent influenced by the teachings of Swami Vivekananda. We can cover it in a later episode, but yeah, there have been thousands and thousands of examples. But individually, if you ask me, what I see is the seva bhav, getting into any level to do seva, leading by an example, living those standards, living those words, to inspire others, inspire his fellow men, right from his earliest days, is something which is absolutely magnificent, which is not spoken of in the mainstream history or mainstream discussions. And that's why I made it a point that let us discuss this aspect of it, because how spiritual, we all know about Rishi Aurobindo's contribution, and today there is a lot of focus on Rishi Aurobindo, his teachings, how he developed as a human and what all happened, etc. But nobody touches on Swami Vivekananda, who actually preached Rishi Aurobindo, Swami Vivekananda, who inspired a genre of revolutionaries, and not spoken at all. And who better than Subhash Babu, who was his spiritual son for that matter, who actually gave a shape to it. When we discuss Bhagajatin, we will discuss many other things. Bhagajatin and Master the Surya Sen,
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for those wonderful informations. We are very poorer actually about without these knowledges. So viewers, thank you very much. And well, we see that how the spiritual flow of knowledge that cascading from Swami Vivekananda ji, and then after generation and generation, and like an epitome, Netaji emerges. That's how his life is. Thank you, sir.